Yo, what's up, boys? Bruno Wolf here. Gonna bring you a video talking about 12-12, the two builds that I have found to be really consistent and super solid. And we're gonna jump right into it. So, I was playing around, right? So this is how it kind of went down. I was playing around and I was trying some new things. I was looking at like basically the build table, right? And we're looking at all the different items and I was trying to put some together, see what was good, see what wasn't good, so on and so forth, right? Well, we did some playing around and it went really poorly. Let's see. I did some playing around. I was trying. Um, Gore Drinker straight into Man Immune. I was trying to stride with Man Immune and Ravenous. Um, stride with Tier. I was trying Triforce. I was getting Hull Breaker games in. I was even throwing in Essence Reaver. We were giving it all a shot, giving everything a fair chance. Even a Gore Bork Ravenous game. Kim Punk. Every item you could think of, right? So we were playing around, and then it finally hit me on what the builds were going to be. So I found two really solid ones that I really enjoy, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. And the room pages, all that stuff, right? So this is for 12-12. This is after the nerf. This is after the 12-12 nerf on Fiora, where we lost a lot of scaling damage. And I was just trying to find a way. Did we need to go to split pushing? Was there a way to make up for that damage? So on and so forth. So what I have been doing is for three melees, I've been going Gore Drinker, Ravenous, Man Immune, Death Stance, and then Maul. Or obviously those are situational, but the core items are Gore Drinker, Ravenous, and Man Immune. And that was working really well. I mean, we started winning on all these. And then what I started doing for the ranged matchups was I was doing Stride, really we're starting with Bork. So it's Bork, Stride, and then Death Stance or Maul, whichever they have more damage of. And skipping Ravenous completely, and also not taking Man Immune. So that build is very weird, and we'll talk about it when we get into the game, but you'll see we just started winning. So I actually fell all the way down to D2, like 0 LP, and then we started building these, and it just started to click, and we started winning again, getting a lot more better games in on Fiora. But we're going to go into a practice tool. Don't look at that one. 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 Just don't even look. We're just going to hop into a practice tool right now and just go ahead and look at these builds, all right? And we'll just talk about them and the way that I like to build them and everything. Also, I've been running Ignite like the whole time, and here's the runes I've been running because it's just straight up scaling, and then taking Triumph as well. Because with the scaling runes, they're so good. Absolute Focus at like 30 minutes when you're level 16 is plus 16 for your level, and then you're getting plus 40 or 29 AD, so it's like plus 50 AD basically at 30 minutes. A massive power spike, right? So these are the runes I've been running. These are scaling runes, so you're basically playing Feast or Famine on Fiora. If you get behind in lane, it's not going to be a good time. It's going to be really bad. Now, obviously, I think when you're learning and you're getting used to certain lanes, I think it's okay to run Resolve. Obviously, like into range laners, Second Wind is really good. Into heavy CC, Unflinching is really good. Or if you're going against like somebody, let's say like Jax or something, who's only got the one stun to him, you can totally go like Bone Plating and Revitalize. That's really strong. If you want to scale, but scale defensively, you can go Conditioning and Overgrowth. There's a lot of things that you can do, but I try to stick to Conditioning, these two. I don't really get Demolish or any of that stuff, but any of these are viable. I think that Conditioning and Unflinching are the two that I usually take the most, and take those hand in hand together. But obviously, these are the runes. I have literally been taking these runes. I have been coin flipping ranged matchups, not taking Second Wind, only getting the heals from like Doran's Shield basically, and it's actually not been that bad. It's been working out for me. So we're going to talk about these two builds. So you've got the melee build and the range build, and that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about how I like to build them, obviously, because there's certain ways you can do it. But for Gore Drinker, it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, a lot of people ask, when are you going to buy tier? When do you pick up tier? And so on and so forth. I always want tier to be at the 1500 below mark, right? So by the time I have 1500 gold, I should have the tier, because I'm going to build it third. I need it fully stacked. So that means either, we're going to go whip with a tier, which is 1500. We're going to go tier with executioners. If it's a heavy healing lane, I'll definitely rush executioners into lanes like Atrox, Aurelia, Warwick, if you get the unfortunate enough to have to lane against that. But anything that is extreme healing, even like Olaf, anything that's extreme healing, this is really not the worst item ever. Executioners is actually pretty solid. It's giving you 20 AD, it gives you grievous wounds, it's really solid, and sometimes it's better to grab that than to rely on your ignite cooldowns. Now, and also, if you want to rush tabbies, then boom. Let's say they've got a Tryndamere top lane, and then a Lee Sin in the jungle, and you're getting camped. Well, you know, that's not going to be the worst buy ever, right? Or they might have something like a Lucian or Quinn or something like that top, and then another AD jungler as well. So this is also within the 1500 mark, right? So I always like to get tier at the 1500 gold mark, and I don't like to go any further than that. So you should have it when you get your whip or your first, or even if you're going, now you don't really build it with the Bork though, unfortunately, or you could go with Vamp Spec and then get it, but it's not, I've tried it, it's really not worth it to grab the Vamp Spectre and the tier and to go Mana Immune with Stride Breaker. Those builds just, it doesn't work out very well. So ideally, right, we're going to grab the tier and the whip, and then we'll finish Gore Drinker, and then we'll take that into Ravenous, right? So right now, this isn't much of a power spike. This is just the first item, but it helps with healing. It also gives us some Omnivamp and some Lifesteal here. Sitting at 6.5, 25.9 for max. So this isn't really, Gore Drinker is not necessarily like a power spike for you. What you're really looking at is when you get the Ravenous, this is actually a pretty solid little spike here because you're about at 10%. By then, your Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm are kicking a little bit. You should be around the 20-minute mark, so we're getting some decent AD, and that'll put us above the 10% mark for Vitals, and also, you know, above the 40, around like 45% for the ulti. Now, the big spike is really when we stack the tier here, and we get that going, and also that scales with levels. So if we level up to, let's say 16, and we stack the tier all the way, and then we buy the item. So right now we're sitting at 268. Now this is without the Gathering Storm, which would be 14 or 29 AD at this point, right? We buy this and we go from 268 AD all the way to 353. An insane spike, right? Now we're rocking 13.7 and 54.8, once again, without the scaling runes. And then this is the opportunity where you can either decide, well, if they're full AD, we would grab a, you know, Death Stance and a GA, right? Or if they do have a lot of healing, we could go Death Stance and then get Chem Punk. Chem Punk is a good item. It's super cheap. It's 2,600 gold, but it gives you 55 AD, 250 HP, and 25 ability haste. This is really not a bad item, by the way. I just want you guys to know that. Hidden OP sleeper here, actually. Literally, this gives you like the Mythic passive as well. So anytime that you can knock something out that's going to give you Mythic passive, it's solid. Super solid, actually. So this is a great item to buy as well for full healing. You know, full AP. We can totally grab a Force of Nature and a Maul. Like, those are not bad items either. I don't really buy Sterix or anything. You really, like, if you're going to go a defensive item that doesn't have armor, you should only do it, or doesn't have AD, you should only do it for one. Only do it for one. Because the end goal here is to have 400. We want to have 400 AD. Once again, this is without the scaling, but 400 AD is the goal because it gets us around where we can kill somebody in about 6 vitals. So, you know, you go in, you hit one, and then you do the full 4, then you hit the last one afterwards. While you're healing, you get the kill, and then you continue fighting, or you get the, if you're fighting front to back, you get the ulti off, so your team can heal, and then you win the team fight, so on and so forth. So, ideally, this would be my perfect build if we were going with the Gore Drinker build. Gore Drinker into Ravenous, Mana Immune, Death Stance, Maul. And I think Death Stance has, let's say their damage is split AD and AP. I think that Death Stance holds a little bit more value than Maul. So I always take this first. Just because it staggers the damage you take, and then if you get a kill, you get a massive heal from it. So Death Stance is great. So this is the first build. This is a go-to for if you have 3 melees against you. And when I say 3 melees, you got to think about, when I say melee, it's basically the damage that's going to kill you, right? So we could say that champions like Lee Sin or something like that, or Lilia, are like mid-range champions, right? But how does Lee Sin kill you? He Qs in, and he kills you in melee range, so that's a melee champion, right? Like, when Lilia kills you, she kills you not from a melee distance, unless she jumps on you, right? So it's like kind of mid-range, but I would take a Stride Breaker there, because she's faster than you. I would take Stride Breaker Bork there. She's faster than you, she's going to try to kite you around. That is a range laner to me. I basically think about this, if I wanted to go Gore, it'd be more like against a Riven, an Aurelia, a Renekton, any tanks. you really want to take this against tanks, and then, you know, a Nautilus support, a Leona support, or something like that. So this is an amazing OP build into 3 melees or more. So now we'll switch it up and we'll talk about this build. Now this build is a little bit different because we're going to rush Borg. Now usually I start this build off like this. I grab a Vamp Spectre and it allows me to heal a little bit in lane, take some bad trades, and then I usually get like a refillable as well with it. But there's 2 ways you can do this. So you can grab your whip first if you'd like. You can grab whip first and then start building into it. If you feel like the whip is going to help you proc more vitals and you can get more damage out that way, you can totally do that. I prefer just to get the Bork out of the way and then get the whip. And I'm still taking the same runes, by the way. I'm taking the same runes for both of these builds, same runes, because I just want to keep scaling and get as much AD as possible. I want to play comfortable. I want to play fearless. I want to play head on and just go for it. But like I said, you can run that resolve secondary tree if you don't want to do that, because like you saw before in that op.gg, sometimes you go 0-8 and there's no way for you to get back into the game when you're running scaling runes. So just a heads up. But you can do this where you like build the whip and then start building the Bork, but I think Bork should be finished first. Like almost 100% of the time. Basically 95% of the time, Bork should be finished first because of how much damage it is to single targets. And by the time you have this done, you're still only fighting single targets. And basically what this build is, it's more of an assassin build. It's good against 3 ranged or more, but you have to play it way different. And that's what you got to understand too. When you're going the stride build, you have to play like an assassin. You can't just walk and face tank somebody. You got to play the bushes a little bit, hide in the jungle, try to make really fast plays where you're off vision. It's just, it's a different play style. So you got to think you're a bruiser / fighter when you are running the gore build, and then when you're running the stride build, you got to think of yourself more as a quick burst, fast damage, more of an assassin type of build, right? So we'll look at this build. So I'd go Bork into stride, and now this is where it gets weird because I don't run Triumph on this, so you got to be really careful with your mana. Make sure that you're like only like auto attacking minions. You're gonna have to go back to base a lot to get mana. Try to steal the blue buff from your jungler, you know. Or if you see the enemy has it, you want it, you go take it. You know what I mean? But with this build, you got to be a little bit more careful with your mana cost. You got to be aware of it. You can run Presence of Mind, but I just prefer running Triumph, to be honest with it, just in case I'm fighting like an Ignite laner and I need that extra HP to survive, or you know, I try to 1v2 and get a quick kill and get out. Just that extra HP is super helpful. And if you manage your mana and you just clear the waves with auto attacks and your whip, you'll be fine. Because I don't end up buying Ravenous with this one, so you can buy it. But what I would prefer, this would be like the ideal build for this one, would be a little bit of resistances, so Death Stance and Maul, which just helps you survive burst. But mainly, this is, like I said, a single target damage build, and you've got Stridebreaker, Bork, and that's going to do all the damage you need. A little bit of resistances, and then you can throw in a Ravenous at the end. If you're really just split pushing like crazy, you can get a Hull Breaker. You can get a GA. For the most part, this is the core, though, is these 4, and then throw on a GA or a Ravenous, and you'll be all right. But I really don't get it until the very last item, which, once again, reaches our goal here of 400 AD, big vital damage, and this is without Gathering Storm. It's got absolute focus at level 16. But these are basically the 2 builds for 12-12 after the nerfs that have worked really well for me. And even though I tried and played around with a lot of stuff, I ended up dropping 200 LP. I literally built these 2 builds specifically, and they both feel consistent, and they're very, very easy to understand. So basically, to recap, you're going the Gore build into 3 melees, 3 or more, and you're going the Stride build into 3 ranged or more. There is one exception where you can go the Bork build if it's not 3 range, and that's if you just know you're going to need single target damage. If you know you're never going to be team fighting, you're going to be split, but you're going to be fighting more like in the jungle, because it's not much of a build without the mana. It's not much of a build where you're split pushing and getting towers. It's more like, okay, I'm going to kind of do my own thing, sit in the jungle, try to catch people off guard, get quick kills, and put pressure on the map, and just be a menace all over the place, basically. Just like an invisible assassin, essentially, right? So those are my 2 builds. Those are the 2 builds that I found the most consistent with. I've been able to get my 200 LP back, thank the Lord, right? Been able to get that back with these 2 builds. I definitely recommend that you guys try them, and I'd love to know what you guys think about them. So those are my 2 builds after the 12-12 nerf. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, And until next time, peace out, love ya, goodbye.